This public hearing is called to order. The time is now 8:30 a.m., Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Notice of today's hearing were advertised on KUAM and provided via email to senators, stakeholders, and local media, and posted on the Government of Guam Public Notices website on Tuesday, February 10th, and Friday, February 13th, pursuant to Chapter 8, Title 5 of Open Government Law. The purpose of today's hearing is to receive testimony on the following agenda items in the following order. Bill 19-38 COR, sponsored by Senators Sabina Flores Perez and Chris Barnett. It's an act to repeal and reenact Section 7161A and E, and to amend Section 7161B, all of Chapter 7, Title 16, Guam Code Annotated, relative to updating the Streetlight Fund to authorize the Department of Public Works to facilitate installation and replacement of streetlights and enhance safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. The second item on the agenda is Bill number 127-38 COR, sponsored by Senators Sabina Flores Perez and Vice Speaker V. Anthony Atta. It's an act to add a new section 28112D of Chapter 28, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to strengthening the Department of Public Health and Social Services inspection capacity to protect the health of our people. And the last item is Bill number 126-38 COR, sponsored by Senators Sabina Flores Perez, Chris Barnett, Shelly B. Calvo, Therese M. Terlaje. It's an act to add a new section 28112D of Chapter 28, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to educational advancement and providing safe learning environments for our youth. So Section 6.01A1A Part B of the 38th Guam Legislature Standing Rules allows the prime sponsor of a bill to coordinate with the committee chairperson to which the bill was referred and to hold a public hearing after 120 days, excluding legislative ones, have lapsed since the bill's referral. After the public hearing, the prime sponsor shall produce and provide a committee report to the chair, which applies to all the bills today. The rules of conduct for today's hearing are as follows. The order for those wishing to testify will begin with agencies, followed by those who confirm in advance, and then by the sign-in sheet. I ask that all written testimonies be submitted in advance to my staff to facilitate copying and dissemination to all those present here today. When you're called to testify, please ensure the microphone is on and restate your name and organization if applicable for record-keeping purposes. Senators will be given an opportunity at the end of the panel to ask questions, and questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Now we begin our agenda to hear testimony for Bill 19-38, sponsored by Senator Sabina Flores Perez and Chris Barnett, an act to repeal and reenact Section 7161A and E, and to amend Section 7161B, all of Chapter 7, Title 16, Guam Code Annotated, relative to updating the Streetlight Fund, to authorize the Department of Public Works to facilitate installation and replacement of streetlights and enhance safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. For a brief introduction, Bill 19-38 aims to improve installation and maintenance of streetlights to promote highway and public safety by ensuring the funds collected from vehicle registration fees are dedicated for its intended purpose. Current statute does not prevent lapsed funds of the Streetlight Fund from being directed elsewhere. Information obtained by FOIA demonstrates that lapsed funds ranged from approximately $120,000 to $740,000 for 4 years during a 5-year snapshot from 2017 to 2021. However, consistent utilization of the Streetlight Fund is essential to fill the need for streetlights throughout Guam's roadways. Bill 19 would streamline the process by authorizing DPW as a lead agency in directing installation and maintenance of streetlights in consultation with GPA and the Guam Police Department. The current process entails residents to contact mayors or GPA, to contact mayors or GPA. The mayors who then contact GPA, who then seeks reimbursement from DOA. As a lead agency, DPW would be able to develop a proactive and comprehensive approach to lighting our roadways, using the specifications provided by Guam Power Authority and input from the Guam Police Department for crime prevention and public safety initiatives. Information obtained by RFI GPA corroborates that DPW controls the placement of the streetlights along roadways throughout the island. However, current statute leaves out the ability to install and maintain streetlights that are not on GPA's power poles and that are under different agencies' jurisdiction, which includes GVB, GURA, Parks and Rec, and private development, and which may not have plans in place or funds for installation of poles or regular upkeep. The result has been the visible lack of consistent lighting along our roadways, which impacts safety. The 2022 Guam Safety Plan noted that most crashes occur where there are poor lighting conditions. Bill 19-38 aims to close this gap, which helps promote safety on Guam's roadways. Bill 19-38 also authorized the use of funds to create in the creation of sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and to improve roadways with the intention that funds are available after streetlight needs are met. This concept was motivated by the need to increase safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists alike, and which was advocated by the youth at a prior Close-Up Foundation presentation. Bill 19-38 also would ensure greater accountability of public funds by converting it to a non-lapsing revolving fund in which funds are to be kept in a separate account and not commingled with the general fund to ensure that the portion of the annual registration fees collected are being used for its intended purpose. Bill 19-38 would require that monies collected must be deposited within 20 days following the end of the month, and quarterly collections reports are submitted by the Director of Department of Revenue and Taxation to Y Legislatura in Guam. Additionally, quarterly collection and expenditure reports are to be submitted by the Director of Public Works to Y Legislatura in Guam. I would like to thank my co-sponsor, Senator Chris Barnett, and to the constituent who initially brought this important matter to light. Fiscal note provided by BBMR, dated February 2025, indicated that annual appropriations of the Streetlight Fund averages $4.1 million annually. We did receive testimony and strong support of the bill from Junior Mayor Brian Terlaje. So at this time, I would like to invite those that have come to testify to take a seat at the table, and I would call on your testimony. So yeah, please come forward. I would also like to recognize my colleague, Senator Shelly Calvo, for being here. Good morning. So thank you so much, DPW, for being here. I know you have to leave at 9, so appreciate your attendance today. So when you're ready, just please restate your name for record-keeping purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning, Senator. Good morning, Senator Calvo. My name is Vince Ariola. I'm the Director at the Department of Public Works, and we appear here and we write in support of Bill 19-38 COR. This bill seeks to continue funding the vital installation, repair, and maintenance of streetlights throughout our island. This will also ensure to enhance the safety and security within our public housing areas, highways, streets, and villages. Currently, we have over 22,500 streetlights throughout the island. Our monthly billing averages about $453,000 per month. Any and all additional funding for streetlights will only serve to better our island and keep our residents and visitors safe. With the advent of LED lights and their associated electrical cost savings, we've been able to increase our streetlight count, working very closely with the Guam Power Authority, Guam Police Department, and our island mayors. We will continue to provide our island with streetlights, keeping our community safe and our properties secure. Along this same subject of streetlights, there is one specific logistic issue that I've recently started having conversations with GPA. In the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar, and probably even before then, specific specialty light poles across various Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority, GURA, communities were severely damaged or destroyed. These light poles are also seen in housing areas such as Barragata Heights, Ipapau Estates, the Jonestown area, etc. While some have been restored, many areas are non-functioning because the special light pole is either damaged, broken, or rusted and no longer there. Clearly, these special poles require immediate replacement since all of them have a concrete base which is still intact. DPW will continue to work with GPA to identify those GURA sites and others I've mentioned island-wide. We plan to perform an inventory and assessment of the location of the poles that are damaged beyond repair and or are missing completely. We also plan to source poles that can sustain heavy winds and are not suspect to rust and rot. Lastly, it is our intention that this streetlight fund would be used to cover these specific purchases, installations, and repairs to ensure our streetlights coverage throughout the island is more than adequate and meets the need of our residents. Thank you for allowing me to comment on this bill. Respectfully, Vince Arreola, Director, DPW. Thank you.
Zeus Masi, Director Arreola, for your testimony in support of the bill. So I did a quick calculation, and the monthly billing actually exceeds the amount of money that we collect. So is this, so you mentioned there was cost savings because of the, I guess, conversion to LED lights. Do you estimate that there's going to be continued cost savings to, I guess, reduce the cost overall for power?
I think we are right at the cusp of the savings that we've earned, basically, turning to LED lights. When I first got on board 6-7 years ago, we had about 16,000 street lights. We're at 22,000 right now, and we're close to that appropriation. So, you know, the savings they estimated we should see about 50% savings, and if you see, if we've gone from 16,000 to 22, that's about 6,000-7,000 additional streetlights. That's close to 50. So we're close to the cusp of the savings. So I think the appropriation that we have right now is adequate. We work very well with the mayors and with GPA in getting the streetlights fixed. What I've seen, I believe the LED street lights are a little bit more durable in terms of actually burning out or going out there for repairs. While we still see a heavy amount of repairs, it's not as much as we had prior to the LEDs. But I think in terms of the appropriation and what the bill really intends to do is to keep the funds within DPW so that we can continue to use it on a regular basis.
Yes, thank you for that. And yeah, definitely, there is a huge need, as everybody knows, when you drive around the island, there's many dark spots, right?
Right.
And so, continue to, I guess, first of all, I'm very happy that you're supporting that DPW is going to be the lead agency to take a comprehensive look and to, perhaps even request an amount to fund what's needed out there. So, yeah, we look forward to that as well. So,
yes, Senator, if there was one note, I didn't bring it up in my testimony, but the bill talks about DPW shall have programmatic oversight. If you could kind of define that. I know I'm not supposed to ask questions, but I was a little concerned about that. I'm not going to write checks, am I? I'm not bonded to do that.
Okay, so I'll be happy to adjust the language. The idea was that there was one lead agency because in our research there were different agencies had jurisdiction over polls. So like GORA has their own jurisdiction, GVB has jurisdiction in Tumon, right? And then you have the private development. And so the idea was that to give make DPW the lead agency to oversee what's needed and perhaps to request the funding or have adequate funding to make sure lighting is adequate. So that was really the idea.
Okay.
But as far as verbiage, I'm open to amending it so that it's it's not as scary,
Yeah.
but it gets the purpose done. That's
Okay,
my intent with that.
Okay, understand.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we can talk more about verbiage to see what's the better fit.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
In regards to, so the reason why I added other uses of the fund, because there was a time when there was lapse funds.
Mhm.
So if it happens that the cost savings is more than what's appropriated or what's collected, so do you? I guess you agree with the other expenditures. So like for creating sidewalks and just upgrades to the roadways as well. So that's something I wanted to
Yeah.
just
I'm fine with that,
confirm.
Senator, but I just see, as you mentioned, there's so many dark
Right.
pockets. There's probably 1,000, we estimate about 1,000 of those poles that need to get replaced, those specialty poles that are out there. So that in and of itself is gonna cost a pretty penny.
Okay.
Those specialty poles are pretty expensive, and you know, we're working with these private neighborhoods that go up and they put up these nice poles. We need to have some semblance of not just order, but making sure that all the poles align with a certain base so that they're interchangeable. We can't have, you know, 15 different kinds of light poles out there. That gets really cost prohibitive.
So that it would have to involve some communication with the developers, or
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, and have a certain standard, especially for mounting.
okay,
And
and this bill would
durability.
allow you to do that, to
Right. Yes,
take
ma'am.
the lead. Okay, okay, great. So I don't have any other questions as of now. So I just want to open up the floor to my colleague, Senator Calvo. If you have any comments or questions.
Not at the moment. I just want to say hi and happy day and buenas for being here. If there are other testimonies, I would be encouraged to listen first and see if we have others before I ask questions. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Calvo. So are there any further comments you would like to make?
No, I'm open to sitting down and meeting with you. If you're ready to mark up the bill, we're certainly available.
Okay, great. And I just want to make sure if there's anyone else that would like to testify on Bill 19, if you can come forward. Okay, so seeing that there are no further testimonies. Okay. Yeah, so we did receive testimony from Mayor Brian Terlaje, and I just want to allow my colleague, Senator Calvo, if she is willing to read, if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Testimony from Brian Terlaje, Mayor of Municipality of Jonya, relative to updating the Streetlight Fund to authorize the Department of Public Works to facilitate the installation and replacement of streetlights. Buenas din, half a day. I write the strong support of Bill number 19-38, which seeks to update the Streetlight Fund and authorize the Department of Public Works to more efficiently facilitate the installation and replacement of streetlights throughout our island. The demand from our community to repair and restore non-functioning streetlights continue to grow. As elected officials and public servants, we consistently receive concerns from residents about dark roadways, inoperable lights in neighborhoods, and the delays in addressing these issues. This measure represents meaningful progress towards expediting those repairs and responding to the high volume of requests from our constituents. Functional street lighting is not merely a matter of convenience. It is a matter of public safety. Properly illuminated roadways enhance visibility for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians, reducing the risk of accidents and improving overall traffic safety. In rural and village areas especially, streetlights serve as critical safeguards for families walking in the evenings and for children waiting at bus stops in the early morning hours. Beyond traffic safety, adequate lighting also plays an important role in deterring potential criminal activity. Well-lit streets and neighborhoods discourage unlawful behavior and provide residents with a stronger sense of security in their own communities. Investing in reliable street lighting infrastructure is, in many ways, an investment in crime prevention and quality of life. For these reasons, I am in agreement with moving this legislation forward and supporting any progress that will streamline processes, improve efficiency, and allow the Department of Public Works to respond more swiftly to community needs. I respectfully urge my colleagues to support Bill number 19-38 and take the important step forward, enhancing safety and strengthening public confidence in our infrastructure system. Sidus Masi, Mayor Brian J. Terlaje.
Zus Masi, Senator Calvo, for reading it into the record. And I'm very appreciative of Mayor Terlaje for his support of the bill, which I'm sure reflects a lot of the mayor's conditions or, what they experience. So we do have, I know Senator Tadegwi's on her way and she had some questions, but I know you have to leave in about 10 minutes, or you have a meeting in about
Yes,
10
it is.
minute.
As a matter of fact, I just mentioned her, it's with performance-based budgeting with the Office of Finance and with Senator Duenas. So I'm thinking this streetlight issue, this streetlight program might be a perfect test case for performance-based budgeting.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see the results, right?
Yeah,
For
yes.
sure.
And also for the record, ma'am, since there was a letter from the mayor, the governor's office does have a liaison to work directly with the mayors, specifically for streetlights and for roads. His name is Robert Lizama, former mayor of Jigo, and they can contact him at 685-1113. All mayors pretty much work directly with him, but if they don't have his number, it's 685-1113.
Okay, great. That's great to hear that you're already in the process of making sure the streetlights are addressed. So I do want to recognize Senator Tadegwi just for briefly, because I know they have to leave. If you have any questions for them, for the panel here. Or do you want to catch your breath?
Yeah. Heavy breathing is because I was running. Sorry, I apologize for being late, Madam Chair. I thought it was at 9 o'clock.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I know that streetlights, I was listening while I was coming here about your testimony, and there was something that caught me when you said that there's enough funding. Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, what I meant, Senator, is with the amount of savings that we've been able to realize from the old form of streetlights to the current LED, even before the LEDs were being installed by GPA, they estimated that we would probably annualize about 50% savings in our power bill from GPA, and we're about pretty close to that. And so what we've been doing, those savings, is we've been pouring that back into additional streetlights, LED streetlights, and you could see that.
How much is that total, Vince? The savings, how in dollars amount?
Let's see, 6. Hang on, I'm trying to get my, probably about 5, maybe about 2 mil in savings. So when I first started, we had like about 16,000 streetlights. We're up to 22 with the same appropriation. So
16,000.
we've got an additional 6,000 streetlights that are out there with the same amount of money.
Okay, so you have 22,000.
22,000, right.
22,000, yes.
Right.
That's available, that you have, so almost double it. You have 2 million right now. So what is the full amount that you think you're going to need if you're having this cost savings, the additional amount of streetlights that you put up? What are you looking at as far as funding wise?
Yeah. So what we've been getting is we've been receiving about $5 million every fiscal year, right? And so in the previous years, a little over 4. Right, yeah, so in the previous years, we had 16,000 streetlights. Today, we have 22,500 with the same amount of money. So we've taken those savings and poured it into additional streetlights. Now, we're like I mentioned to the chair, we're at the cusp right now, we're at the edge, basically, of utilizing all those, the savings we've had from going to LED. I'd have to take a look at additional funding if we were to, say, if we were to do an additional 500 to 800 additional street lights every year, right? Based on, I think we're using 250 watts. Those are running at about $35, $36 a month.
Okay, so Vince, you're saying that you're looking at adding every year about 500. You said how many a year additional? You're okay.
Right.
Have you audited this streetlight fund, and have you audited, put everything in perspective on a plan moving forward? Like you said, you plan on putting what, 50 more every year? What is that? 50 or 500?
500.
Okay, 500 every year. Okay, so you have that block of new, which is desperately needed, new lighting, right? But then all the other current ones, that's a different block of lights for maintenance, maintenance, upgrade, and replacement. So you have that section. So have you done an audit on exactly how many is needed? Kind of like the the master road plan.
Right.
You have that master road plan, and in the master road plan, do you take into consideration lighting, or is that totally separate?
No, lighting is considered every time we do a road.
Okay, so is in the master road plan that you had a recent audit too?
I'm sorry?
The recent audit by the OPA's office on the master road plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, was lighting incorporated into that?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, that's
No,
what
it
I was
wasn't.
saying.
Right, yeah.
So it is separate then?
But moving
Okay.
forward, yes.
But moving forward?
Moving forward, we
Is there
will.
any amendment coming forward on the master road plan that you're incorporating the lights into that?
Nothing, Senator, except for funding. It's always a matter of funding. There's nothing worse than putting plans together, right? And not funding it, because it really just goes to waste.
But we need a plan.
Understand.
The point is, we need a plan to see where our money is going.
Yeah.
So when is are you going to be making an amendment? Because this master plan comes back since 2000s, right? The early 2000s, and then as you move forward, as we get growing, there's amendments that is made to this master plan, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When is the next amendment that you're going to make or upgrade to the master plan, and will you be including the lighting?
Yes. I think what one of the things we definitely have to do is, I mentioned it in my testimony, there's not just street lights, but also these specialty street poles that are out there, because if you look at a lot of the neighborhoods that have those specialty poles, they're completely dark. And so we need to put those into the plan. They're a costly investment, but I think they're still cheaper than putting a GPA pole in the ground, changing the wiring, working on the electrical, because the base is still good. It's just a matter of getting the specialty pole that's out there. And I estimate there's probably about 1,000 of them. So if you see a lot of these subdivision neighborhoods that were put in place 30, 40, 50 years ago, they're in the dark, because those poles have either fallen down, they've rotted, they've cracked. The electrical is still good, the base is still good, but the poles have fallen, and they are no longer functional. And my understanding with GP is they're afraid to touch it, because if they put a new street light on there, the weight itself might come crashing down, and they just don't want to touch it, which is understood. So I need to make sure that I put that in the plan as well. New poles as well, because poles are costly.
Right. So once again, Vince, are you going to be, when's the next amendment you're going to make to the master plan, the road master plan? And are you going to incorporate lights?
We need to do some market research. We have some idea of how much those poles cost. That's really the only, we have all the other numbers, how much it costs to repair a light, how much it costs to replace a light, the arm, so on and so forth, right? It's just the cost of the poles. And we just had these conversations with GPA, because that came up at one of, I forget what meeting it was, but someone really brought it up. Actually, it was the mayor of Assen that brought it up. He's got a bunch of poles that he needs replacing down in Assen, which is a Gora community.
So again, Vince, are you going to put it in the master plan, and when is the next amendment to the master plan?
Okay, obvious, of course, we're going to put it in the master plan. It's something for safety, security. We could probably have that in the next 90 days.
Okay,
I'm thinking.
there's
The
my,
next 9, fair
there's
enough.
my answer to my question. Lastly, Madam Chair, if I may, there are situations where families just can't wait, you know, but they have some means to put up a light, particularly in the, there's one in Mangmang Toto, the subdivision, Hyundai subdivision, and it's really, they've had a couple accidents there. It was just so dark, and thank God nobody, you know, got seriously hurt, but a child was almost hit, you know, and it was dark area. So they offered, you know, the family offered to put up a light, you know, pole light. So can they do that, or do they have to go to DPW to get this, you know, permit, or do they work with DPW saying, hey, look, you know, Mr. Director, I have the money it takes to put up a light, and but it's actually the cost of having that light on. And if the family is willing, you know, to cover some of that cost too, I mean, how does a family, especially those who are listening today, they want to know, how can I get one and not have to wait for the government of Guam, because, you know, I'll be gone by the time a street light gets up here. How do they do that?
It really starts with the mayor. We work very closely with the mayor. Mayors have, I wouldn't say complete accountability like we do, but they are intimately involved in every street light, just like they are with every road and everything within their village. So we have to include the mayors, because they are also, we work very closely with them. They are also responsible for identifying which street lights are needed, which street lights need repair, which bulbs are out, so on and so forth, right? So they have the same grid map that we have of GPA. So if someone were to offer to put up their own pole and put up a street light, they would start it with the mayor, and eventually the request comes to us. We send it to GPA, and we work with GPA to see if, you know, because it can't just be any simple pipe. It's got to be a pole that's right. Yeah, there's certain standards for light poles.
Okay, so that's the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Then, and from there, does that family can get some help and push, not just from the mayor, but from DPW? I
Sure.
mean, what is the, okay, and it's happened in the past, Vince? Has it ever happened in the past?
I'm sure it has.
But it's never
I can't
happened under your
recall
watch?
something specifically right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's never happened under your watch?
Not that I can recall.
Okay.
I know a lot of residents buy the streetlights themselves and connect it to their own power, and literally just put it up like
By their
over
house or their
garage,
fence? Yeah.
around the fence,
Okay.
screw it onto a coconut tree. I've seen that, but it's
Okay.
their own personal.
Because I know this particular area, it's a cul-de-sac, you know,
Right.
and there's many families, and it involves many families in this cul-de-sac, and they're all willing, you know, to fork in and pay whatever monthly electric bill there is, you know, individually, all put it in a pot just to keep their streets safe, because they almost lost one of their own there in that area because it's so dark.
Yes, and it's tied
Yeah.
into their electrical bill from GPA.
Yep.
Understand.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
hopefully
been
we
done.
can have a program that makes it easier, you know, for our community to reach out to their mayor and help our mayors. The next place I'm going to be stopping is the mayor's office and finding out from them, doing my research on if they're having any problems or situations like that, and they just couldn't get DPW or GPA to help that family. So I'll get back to you, Vince, and find out if any of that's, you know, an issue, so that we can help resolve it.
And I also mentioned, just as you were walking in, the governor's liaison for streetlights and roads is former Mayor Bob Lizama. They can contact him as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that information.
685-1113. He's listening right now, probably 80.
What's that number again?
685-1113.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure there's quite a
Thank
bit of
you.
families listening to this public hearing, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for this this bill. It's very much needed. It's a safety issue, and let's not react. Let's be proactive and push this forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tadegui, for your fitness in getting here. I think Senator Calvo, if you had further questions.
Very little. So earlier, Senator Taitagri asked about master plan, but I know that every movement that we do it has like twinning costs to it, right? But at this current time, do we have any implementation plan or timeline, at least, that we can discuss today where we're at with regard to
Basically,
this?
what we have today, Senator, is what we believe is a streamlined plan and process for processing new streetlights, repair of streetlights, so on and so forth. We believe it works very well. We have individuals at DPW that strictly are assigned to streetlights, no different than Mr. Lizama. And we have a couple people over at GPA who that's all they do are streetlights. There's a crew, I know from GPA, that's all they do is they handle the installation, repair, and maintenance of streetlights. So it's a formalized process, and I think it's working really well. Yeah, the only thing that really stands out there is, a lot of it is communication. GPA, who does the final installation and repair, they can't do it unless they know about it, right? And we rely heavily on residents. We rely heavily on mayors to let us know. And for GPA has this grid system that's extremely accurate. They know exactly where every single pole is, where every single street light is. So, and it's all by numbers. So if you tell them a street light is out, and usually most of the poles have a certain number, they can go to it in just a couple of minutes because they have a grid that's very accurate. So the process is working. We believe it's working very well. It's a matter of putting a plan moving forward, and if we need additional money, then so be it. We'll be here in front of you.
Thank you, Director Ariola. I was going to ask, since you brought up the coordination with GPA, and it's already like streamlined since the get-go, I would assume. So there's a clear definition of, when it comes to like private developers, communities that are rising up out within our island, and there's many, residential, there's community, there's commercial that's being built. So it's clearly defined within the ownership, maintenance, and electrical service arrangements. That is included within the coordination that you have spoken earlier?
Yes, that'll be part of the building permit process. And moving one step forward in terms of putting our streetlight plan together, we are probably going to have to make it a requirement that any subdivision that utilizes these specialty poles is going to have to take ownership of those poles throughout the rest of the subdivision.
So that would be clearly defined.
Right, we can't go around buying 37 different kinds of specialty poles. That's just going to be too costly and too cost prohibitive for the government. So, and I believe that the developers of new subdivisions, I don't believe they'll have an issue with it, because these specialty poles, not only are they aesthetic, they're nice to look at. They're not as intrusive, if you will, as say a concrete pole that's being currently used right now. And so, I believe the onus would be on them to keep stock of those poles, if in case 10, 15 years down the road, or a typhoon comes, knocks them down, they're ready to replace that as well.
And it's not only for the developers, but the community in general.
Absolutely.
Because you want to make sure they're uniform and it's almost like they speak with each other, right? The same kind.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I just wanted to tap into my last question. This is more on the prioritization. Do you have any mechanisms to ensure within the community that there's input and prioritization of high need corridors, like school zones, like I mentioned earlier, communities, villages. So what do we have at the moment?
We basically go to our traffic counts and routed roads, and that's where we We prioritize the placement and the upkeep of street lights. So, you know, you're looking definitely all of Marine Drive. We have a big order going into GPA to put street lights from, I believe it's like the Guam Home Center in Derrido all the way to the front gate of Anderson. That'll be lit up hopefully within the next couple months. An order is going in for street lights there, but we go where the traffic is, like you mentioned, just for safety. We also go where the crosswalks are. Again, for pedestrian and traffic safety. So it's really just a matter of where the traffic is, where the pedestrians are, where the dark spots are. I know there's some out there in the village, but you know, we go mostly to where the people are, right?
Thank you, Director Ayola.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate all your answers. And yes, it is important, you know. That's the very reason why we need to implement and put the structures for all these street lights, you know, primarily for safety concerns. And I guess we have like a priority list that we have already identified. On that note, I'd like to thank you for your testimony as well as for answering my questions.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Madam Chair. Appreciate the time to speak.
Oh, thank you, Senator Calvo. We're joined by also Senator Sean Gumatautau and Senator Sabina Salas Montanani. If you can stay for a bit, do you guys, I'd just like to recognize, I don't know who came in first, but Senator Sabina Salas Montanani, if you have any questions to the panel.
I just had a question regarding the streetlights, because when I go home and from here in Agana to Dededo and through Jigo, I noticed like I could barely see the lines on the roads, and then especially when it's raining, it is just extremely dangerous. And it's there's streetlights only on one side of the road, and these are new streetlights, but not on the other side of the road. And I'm just kind of wondering, why is that? And are there plans so that there's streetlights on both sides of the roads?
If I can answer that, Senator, I think a lot of that is, and you're right, there's a section from Derrido to Jigo where there are only poles on the right side, I believe. There's only poles on one side of the road, and you don't really get the full effect of the street lights, right? And so that's another thing that when we put up street lights, if there's already a pole there, it's just to put an arm and a light costs, gosh, I forget what it is, but it's not as much as putting a complete pole there. So that has to be built into our plan, because if we have to put additional poles on the highways or on the routed roads, that's going to be we have to put that into our plan and show the cost there, because that gets pretty cost prohibitive. But you're correct. There's some roads that are so wide, like Marine Drive right now. That's a 100-foot easement, right? But on certain the lanes are only 4 lanes, so you still have 20 feet on both sides, where the power pole is 20 feet away from the road, so you don't really get that much illumination, right? So we need to work with GPA, and the cost is going to be pretty expensive to get it closer to the roadway. So that's pretty much the only reason why. It's a cost factor to install new poles there.
What about, what's the difference in the cost, I guess, from the traditional type of street lights versus the installation of solar lights? Is there a big difference?
We aren't using solar lights right now. We are using LED, but there's supposed to be, and there is quite a saving. We don't see it at 50%, probably at about 40% savings from GPA, from the old halogen lights, the kind of yellowish, to the LEDs that we have today.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Montanani. Senator Sean Gumatautau, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, DPW, for being with us this morning. I want to have a few questions. Actually, I'll start with the fact that it was induction lighting prior to the use of LED. It was part of the team that was part of the big conversion of the LED light setup. Man, it was probably back in 2011 or 2012 when GPA began that first effort to incorporate LED lighting after major testing across roadways. I just wanted to ask a question. What information is available summarizing the process that is established for property owners and residents to report damaged or malfunctioning streetlights? And with respect to streetlights which are continuously on for 24 hours, how much of such lights have yet to be addressed, and how much of taxpayers had to pay for this excess energy use during at least the last maybe 2 fiscal years? Specifically, is it a bad, are we having a bad LED? No, it's hit its life at a certain time. Is it the sensor?
It's a sensor.
That needs to be replaced. What's your general take on it, Vince?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, and any reports for repairs, outages, or like you said, streetlights that are on 24/7, go immediately to the mayor. And then the mayor will work closely with us. There's the governor's liaison that handles street lights, village roads. He's the liaison between ourselves and the mayors. Although many mayors call us directly, and we could take that in as well. But the conduit basic is to report it to the mayors, because every mayor has the grid, the same GPA grid and location of every single power pole and streetlight pole within their village.
What was escaping my mind was the photocell, is the failed photocell that actually triggers off whether or not the light goes on or off. Just a couple more questions. Recognizing that improved lighting in public spaces in Tumon and across our 19 districts can help deter crime, what discussion and subsequent planning efforts have resulted through any collaboration, if any, between yourselves, GPD, GVB, the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association, village mayors, businesses, religious groups, and others on this particular issue? And what resources, if any, if you're aware, has GVB and other entities put forward to help address the streetlight issues, particularly in some of these high-touch areas in our tourism district?
Well, we're not just working with the government streetlights, but we're also working with a lot of the businesses down there to light up their places of business as well. We're also looking at a plan to install cameras throughout Tumon, some at the traffic signals, some at the entrances to Tumon, coming from Chalon San Antonio, coming from Ipa Road, coming from Happy Landing Road, and coming from the last part up north as you come down the hill toward the Weston. We are looking at that plan. I think one of the sticking points is we're looking for a place to house the system, if you will, the entire camera system. And there's been thoughts of putting it at the Coban. We're not sure if they have enough room. There's been thoughts of putting it at JVB, but we are still studying that. We're working closely with GVB and GPD on that effort, and I believe the hotelers as well.
All right, thanks, Vince. Just 2 more questions. Should the Mayor's Council of Guam be added to this policy, as they are able to field complaints from constituents today on outages across most public roadways?
As I mentioned to Senator Perez, we have a good, close process with them. We meet with the mayors every quarter. And every mayor's got we talk and communicate. That's the big issue here, is communication. If we don't know about it, we can't help the constituents out there. And like I said, there's 22,000 streetlights out there. Nobody physically can go out there and count. So it takes a community effort to find the streetlights. If they're not functioning correctly, or if they are needed, report it to your mayor, and the process we believe is working really smoothly. It gets to us. From us, it goes to GPA, and we work very closely with GPA on getting those. I sign we sign reports and requests for installation and repairs every single day to GPA. So every single day, there's a bunch of paperwork that goes to GPA. That's how the process is. We believe is working. It's with 22,000 streetlights and growing, we're always going to have outages and issues with them. So we don't take it lightly. We take it very seriously.
All right, Vince, my last question is the relationship to deliver on the public streetlight policy not working with the Guam Power Authority as the lead agency?
Repeat that again, I'm sorry.
Is the relationship to deliver on the public streetlight policy not working with the Guam Power Authority as the lead, hence the need for this policy?
Yeah, I think it's working very well. We meet with GPA several times a year. We just had a meeting last month to discuss these private streetlight poles, to discuss outages, things of that nature, and we're a big customer of them. So when we call, they pick up and we meet with them. So at a little over $4 million a year, we're a big customer. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Vince. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Senator Gumatato, and thank you so much to DPW for your support. We did receive a testimony from the Mayor's Council of Guam, and they support the intent and recommend its passage. So some of the things I would like to highlight is Mayor Jesse Alec, who's the president of the Mayor's Council, stated the legislation presents an opportunity to modernize how funds are managed and improve both accountability and service delivery. He stated, in my recent survey of the council, only one mayor reported a backlog of new streetlight installations. 3 mayors emphasized ongoing challenges with streetlight repairs and delayed response times. While needs differ across villages, there is a shared desire for improvement in how the streetlight system is funded, prioritized, and maintained. The backlog must be systematically reviewed and prioritized based on safety, traffic, and residential needs. A dedicated process or service standard would help DPW and the mayors track progress and identify high-priority repairs. An online or shared tracking system between DPW, GPA, and the Mayor's Council could provide regular updates on the status of installations and repairs, ensuring accountability and better coordination. So that's some of the comments by the Mayor's Council. So the other thought I had was, as far as federal funding, how much federal funding is allocated, or is it based on this Guam safety plan, highway safety plan?
We don't have federal funding for streetlights. The only federal funding we have are for our routed roads.
Okay, thank you. And I think, this dialogue has really brought to light, no pun intended, the need for this bill because, currently in statute, it's unclear as to the extent which DPW has the authority. In statute, it says all revenues are reserved for use by GPA, when in fact, there are different jurisdictions within Guam in regards to streetlights, from private developments. Again, GVB has control over their streetlights, GURA has control over theirs. There's no one consolidated agency, and that's why I brought this forward. And in fact, maybe 3 times as a charm, because this was first introduced back in the 36th, reintroduced in the 37th, and now we're here in the 38th. So hopefully we can see passage and support of this bill. So I appreciate you for being here, and thank you so much. So I just want to encourage the public to continue to send testimony. Please address Senator Sabina Flores Perez, address 710 Marine Corps Drive, Suite 303A, Hagatna, Guam 96910. Testimony can be hand-delivered to the Guam Congress Building or emailed to office.senatorperez@guamlegislature.gov. If there are no further testimonies, Bill 19-38 COR is duly heard. The time is now 9:25 a.m. So do us masi and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you. And so we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, so we have made some arrangements that we do have people on standby stateside. I believe it's Eastern Standard Time is the latest, which I believe is evening. And we also have the superintendent who has to be back by 11. So to make this quick decision. Yeah, so my apologies, Superintendent. We did make these arrangements because of the time zone difference, but we are going to hear Bill 127-38 at this time. And so for those that are here to testify, if you can come forward. But also we would like to start with those that are on by Zoom, that are participating by Zoom.
Good morning. This is Dr. David Dijak with the National Environmental Health Association.
Sorry, just one quick second. I just need to do the introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah, the time is now 9:25, and we'll move on to the second item of the agenda, Bill 127-38, sponsored by Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Vice Speaker V. Anthony Ada. It's an act to add a new section 28112D of Chapter 28, Title 11 Guam Code Annotated, relative to strengthening the Department of Public Health and Social Services inspection capacity to protect the health of our people. I'd like to recognize my colleagues, Senator Shelly V. Calvo, Senator Terlaje Taitigui, Senator Sabina Salas Matanani, and Senator Sean Gumatautau. Thank you for joining me today. To start with a brief introduction, Bill 127-38 proposes to dedicate 20% of the use tax collected to the Department of Public Health's Division of Environmental Health, which is entirely locally funded. DEH is charged with essential public health services that ensure sanitary requirements are met in our schools, hospitals, nursing homes, restaurants and hotels, and many other establishments. DEH has been highly successful in preventing the spread of disease through the implementing proactive steps, which includes conducting inspections for over 3,000 health-regulated establishments, issuing tens of thousands of regulatory permits and certificates, and preventing the establishment and spread of dengue fever and other mosquito-borne disease on Guam. DEH is also charged with enforcing the Guam Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act that ensures all food, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices imported, distributed, and sold on Guam are in compliance with the laws in order to protect the health and safety of our people. This includes the enforcement of the Natasha Act and preventing secondhand smoke in public spaces, and Public Law 38-5, which prohibits the importation of skincare products that pose a danger to Guam's coral reefs and marine life. In the last few years, DEH's regulatory responsibilities have expanded significantly due to increases in inspections of imported consumer goods with FDA and the Customs Quarantine Agency, due to a rise in illegal and mislabeled products entering the market via e-commerce and small volume importers, new and emerging contaminants and substances requiring modern testing and surveillance infrastructure, potentially PFAS, and greater public demand for transparency, accountability, and rapid response to the health threats. Funding DEH to the 20% use tax would be a strategic investment in preventing the following costly public health crises, from the importation of unsafe products that can result in widespread foodborne illness outbreaks, the long-term exposure to harmful chemicals and loss of consumer confidence, and harm to local businesses selling legitimate goods. I want to thank Department of Public Health Director Ariola and the Division of Environmental Health Chief Tom Nadeau for their leadership in identifying this funding source to advance public health's key tenet that investing in prevention is a cost-effective and best means in protecting the health of our people. So at this time, I would like to recognize those that were on standby, so we can have them up on the screen. So I don't have your name, so you would have to please state your name before speaking. We can start with the top my top left, uh, the individual with the headphones. If you can start with you're recognized.
Thank you. My name is Dr. David Dijak. I am Chief Executive Officer of the National Environmental Health Association, located in Denver, Colorado. I'm prepared to make a statement if right now is the appropriate time.
Yes, thank you. Please proceed.
First, as a somewhat frequent visitor to Guam, I consider it a privilege to be with you this morning. Since the early 2000s, I'm going to guess that I've visited Guam between 15 and 20 times as a trainer, as an educator, and indeed a tourist. So I fit all those different categories. Some of you may recall the MBA program, which was conducted 15 or so years ago at the Adventist Clinic in Tumen Bay. That was my program. And we're really proud that we graduated somewhere between 10 to 15 individuals with Masters of Business Administration in Public Health at that time. I'm speaking to you today regarding Guam Bill 12738 relative to strengthening the Department of Public Health and Social Services inspection capacity to protect the health of our people. My association, NEHA, represents almost 8,000 government, private, academic, and uniformed service environmental public health professionals in the U.S. and its territories, and increasingly internationally. We are the foremost association nationally and internationally recognized as advancing the work of the environmental health profession and its workforce. I commend Senator Perez's introduction of Bill 12738, which aims to establish a stable and predictable funding stream for the inspection, laboratory, and enforcement activities of the Division of Environmental Health within the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services. The legislature's findings in this bill rightly recognize that the workload of the Division of Environmental Health has recently grown dramatically. Globalization, e-commerce, and increasing import volumes mean that more consumer goods are entering the island's markets. The 286% increase in suspected violative imports cited in this legislation are not just a statistic. It represents real potential harm to Guam's to Guam's families, your children, and your visitors. These are not abstract statistics. These are real people that reside and visit your island. The environmental health workforce at the same time is under great strain. According to our recently published Pillars of Governmental Environmental Health, the professionals that we aim to support with this bill play a crucial role in safeguarding public health and ensuring the well-being and prosperity of your communities. However, many state and local agencies are like Guam. They lack the resources to properly perform their duties. This includes inspecting incoming cargo for harmful foods and consumer products. The workforce finds itself understaffed, under-resourced, and unable to meet the growing demand to protect the public and your visitors from the incoming environmental threats. The proposed funding found in B 12738 will enhance Guam's capacity to oversee and regulate the importation, distribution, and sale of unapproved consumer goods and strengthen its ability to address environmental health concerns, as we heard earlier, related to food, to water, and vectors like mosquitoes. The bill, which allocates 20% of use tax revenue to the Environmental Health Revolving Fund, would provide essential resources to the DEH. This investment will not only protect Guam from unsafe products, but also build resilience against other public health threats. The proposed allocation of the 20% of use tax revenues is smart, it is forward-thinking, and which will treat environmental health as a foundational element of public health. We, NEHA, fully support the goals of this legislation. We urge the legislature to pass Bill 12738 to ensure the Division of Environmental Health has the resources it needs to protect every resident and visitor in Guam. And as I close, I did a little bit of research before joining you this afternoon. I understand that just tax revenue alone from tourism brings approximately $151 million in tax revenue to your island. 14,400 people alone draw their income from tourism. It takes only one outbreak of dengue among your commercial enterprises or one major foodborne illness outbreak to cause tremendous risk to that entire enterprise. So I would like to leave you by saying the environmental health profession protects and promotes the health, safety, and most importantly for this conversation, the economic prosperity of Guam. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I wish I could be there with you in person, and I would be delighted to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dijek, for those words of wisdom. And yes, we can stay a little bit because we want to get testimony from others as well. So Sidus Masi for your participation. So next on the list, we have Dr., I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly, Dr. Farquhar. If you can, you are recognized.
Thank you very much for recognizing me. I'll let Dr. Dijek speak for me on my behalf, so we can move on.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Dr. Dijek covered my comments, so I have nothing else to add.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. So I'd like to next recognize Dr. Lim Haparai. Please correct me if I mispronounced your name. Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you. Dr. Lim Hapairai from the Pacific Island Health Officers Association. And in regards to Bill 127-38, I represent the Secretariat of the Pacific Vector Network. Secretariat, which comprises of the WHO and also our colleagues from the South Pacific Commission or Pacific Community Commission, SPC. And rather than a statement, a simple testimony of support towards this bill, the additional revenue would greatly improve Guam's DEH lab. We've seen so much potential, so much growth over the last few years. You know, I joined PIHOA right as dengue was going through Guam. And what a tremendous group of professionals you already have as part of your public health. And the way they utilized the resources that were available was phenomenal. And where I would like to, on behalf of PVN, is really support this bill, and the revenue that could be diverted to DEH would, we see, improve first Guam. This would greatly benefit the people of Guam. As Dr. Dijak commented, the lab in itself has great potential to serve in terms of food screening, making sure pathogens are collected before they become a problem. Also, there are many vector-borne diseases mentioned, dengue, but there's chikungunya, Zika. All of these always seem to come back over and over, and each time it's happened, it's becoming more and more frequent, and the effects are becoming more and more pronounced. And so by improving a lot of the operations at DH lab, you would be investing in protecting Guam from these future outbreaks, which will happen. And where we come in from the PIHOA side, Guam has been instrumental in serving its fellow Northern Pacific Micronesian region. We've been there with teams around the region, training with your people, training in your labs, with your equipment. And all of that requires a lot of efforts and a lot of funds to keep that going. And so maintaining that would be ideal. Then in the greater Pacific, in the region, Guam is very, very unique. It is, other than possibly a lab in Fiji, it is we only have 2 or 3 labs in the entire region. And so Guam is, despite having a lot of issues with their lab, is actually a reference lab. We as a region look towards Guam for solutions, for collaborations, and what we could see is in the future, a lot of the universities, a lot of these big organizations would like to invest back in Guam, utilize some of these lab spaces, utilize that knowledge that's been built throughout the years. And so we have no reservation in supporting this bill. We feel on behalf of PIHOA and on behalf of the Pacific Vector Network that Bill 127-38 is reasonable, and it's an investment in Guam's future, in the US API's future, and certainly in all of the Pacific region's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lim, for your testimony. I think it's really critical for those in the public to hear that. Oftentimes when we don't hear of anything, that's when it's working. And when we hear of something, it's too late. So investing in something as important as this, especially for public health, prevention, again, is the tenet that underlies successful public health initiatives. So I think at this point, we'll continue with the testimonies, and then we'll have questions for later. So at this point, I want to recognize so we have Frank Tovis from the Guam Food Safety Advisory Group. You're recognized. I'm sorry. My apologies. If we can go first with Leilani. My apologies. Yeah, I read. So Leilani, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Half a day, Senator Perez, Senator Taitogui, Senator Gumatautau, and Senator Matanani, and members of the 38th Guam Legislature. My name is Leilani Navarro, and I am testifying today as a private citizen in strong support of Bill 127-38. Although I am currently employed in the Division of Environmental Health, or DEH, as an Environmental Public Health Officer Administrator, the views expressed today are based on my professional experience and personal observations over 11 years of working in DEH. I begin by recognizing that the government of Guam faces many urgent competing priorities: public safety, healthcare access, education, infrastructure, and disaster response all require sustained investment. Within that context, I respectfully submit that DH warrants similar consideration because it is the system that quietly prevents crisis that would otherwise strain those sectors. As Senator Sabina Perez said, DEH is the prevention arm of public health. It regulates restaurants, schools, childcare facilities, hotels, swimming pools, vector control programs, and the importation of food, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices. These mandates are designed to protect residents, visitors, and our economy. Yet, despite this critical role, DEH has experienced persistent funding challenges, even as its responsibilities and demands have continued to grow. I share the following challenges and needs of DEH to demonstrate my point and how additional funding through Bill 127-38 can address them. Number one, DH has historically been underfunded and primarily reliant on local funds. Federal grants have been competitive, short-term, and limited. Prior to 2000, the division relied solely on the general fund, later supplemented by special funds, including the Environmental Health Revolving Fund, or EHRF. However, annual appropriations from these sources have not been sufficient to meet all statutory mandates. Allocating use tax revenues through Bill 127-38 would provide sustainable funding and allow DEH to focus on its core mission. Number two, increasing operational demands have strained the EHRF, leading to significant sanitary permit fee increases in 2020. Because EHRF supports the division's entire operations, it remains insufficient. Aside from the sanitation inspections of over 3,000 businesses, DEH also regulates imported food, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices, and conducts mosquito surveillance and control to prevent diseases such as dengue and Zika. Appropriating 20% of the use tax revenues as proposed in Bill 127-38 could stabilize funding, potentially reduce sanitary permit fees, and lessen reliance on the general fund. Number three, DEH is one of the smallest divisions within the Department of Public Health and Social Services, while other divisions, such as the Division of Public Welfare and the Division of Public Health, have nearly 10 times the staff. Yet DEH carries a comparable number of statutory mandates and receives significantly less local funding. It is said that the less you hear about DEH, the better it is, because it means it is doing its job in preventing disease outbreaks from occurring. And so far, the division has been doing just that. It has been able to keep the flames from getting out of control through the will and hard work of its dedicated small number of staff, and perhaps a little bit of luck. However, we all know that even a small flame can turn into a raging fire. A good example is the 2011 foodborne illness outbreak that sickened over 350 school children from consuming contaminated breakfast. This is still the largest food poisoning case ever reported on the island in the last 40 years. Then there was the dengue outbreak of 2019 that recorded the first ever locally acquired case in 75 years. Of course, let us not forget the school inspection crisis of 2023. While no system can eliminate risk entirely, strengthening DEH through Bill 127-38 can reduce the likelihood and impact of similar events. Number four, DEH administers nearly 200 specific statutory mandates across 24 broad areas and faces difficulty implementing them. Between 49% and 64% of health-regulated establishments have not been inspected in 5 or more years. Nearly 200 detention cases involving over 100,000 imported articles remain pending. Public complaints cannot always be investigated as quickly as needed. Public Law 37-87 recognized these limitations by transitioning inspections to a risk-based approach based on available resources. However, resource limitations now dictate inspection frequency. Bill 127-38 would provide the capacity necessary to properly implement the risk-based system as intended. Number five, through the partnership agreement with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, that agency significantly increased its presence and technical support on Guam, assisting DEH and the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, or CQA, in identifying violative consumer commodities at ports of entry, resulting in dramatic increase in enforcement activities at the ports. Through the CQA's planned ASICUDA system, levying of use tax is expected to improve and could help all recipients of the tax revenues. This would also allow DEH to modernize its operations by developing its own integrated regulatory platform that interfaces directly with ASICUDA to improve data sharing, manage the growing volume of imports more efficiently, and ensure that imported consumer products entering Guam meets applicable safety, efficacy, and quality standards. Number 6, the primary barrier to meeting statutory obligations is insufficient personnel, including both inspectors and administrative support staff. When grants, procurement, or customer service roles are vacant, inspectors absorb those duties. Between 2021 and 2025, DH filled 31 vacancies, but lost 34 employees, including 16 inspectors. Even if all funded vacancies were filled, staffing would still fall short. Our internal assessments indicate that nearly 100 personnel are needed for adequate operations. The current staffing and funded vacancies amount to less than half that number. Bill 127-38 would provide the resources needed to build and retain a sustainable workforce. In collaboration with stakeholders and the Governor's Workforce Collaborative Team on Environmental Health, DH has developed an educational pathway and scholarship to service program for future inspectors. Scholarship recipients would repay their support through service with DH, similar to existing merit-based programs. Use tax funding under Bill 127-38 could finance multiple scholarships and strengthen the local pipeline of qualified professionals. Number 7, staff attrition is often driven by workload demands. Working beyond 40 hours per week is common at DEH, and many departing employees cite burnout and lack of work-life balance. Each resignation increases the burden on remaining staff, which perpetuates the cycle of turnover. Additional funding would allow DEH to hire support personnel, invest in technology, automate administrative and field processes, thereby reducing stress and improving retention. Number 8, the conditions at the Guam Environmental Public Health Lab, also known as the Mosquito Lab, have further strained staff. Since 2016, the facility has experienced persistent issues such as prolonged air conditioning failures, with roughly 1/3 of the building still without AC at this time, a non-functional backup generator, a leaking 30,000-gallon water tank, electrical and mechanical deficiencies, and unused PCR rooms. Improperly installed floor drains have allowed sewer gas intrusion. In the absence of janitorial services, staff have performed weekly cleaning and grounds maintenance themselves, which not only take time away from their regular work, but also demoralize them. Dedicated funding could address these facility deficiencies and provide janitorial and maintenance staffing. Number 9, security and property damage at the Mosquito Lab have compounded operational challenges. A pesticide transport trailer was stolen a few years ago and is yet to be replaced. Official vehicles have been vandalized, stripped of parts, or deliberately damaged, leaving 7 vehicles inoperable. Some staff must use personal vehicles for field work due to limited operable fleet units. DH lacks funding for security services, leaving the facility vulnerable to further theft and vandalism. Additional funding would allow DEH to restore equipment, improve security, and protect public assets. And finally, in recent years, DEH has experienced the real-world consequences of operating under mandates that exceed available resources. When funding limitations are present, even good faith administrative decisions can be subjected to scrutiny in ways that create significant professional and personal risk for agency leadership. Regardless of the ultimate legal outcomes, such experiences have had a chilling effect within the division. Employees, including myself, observe these events and understandably question whether pursuing leadership roles within DEH carries disproportionate exposure when resource gaps remain unresolved. This environment can discourage qualified personnel from aspiring to serve in senior leadership positions. The passage and enactment of Bill 127-38 is one avenue to help prevent similar circumstances from confronting future leaders of DEH. By aligning statutory responsibility with adequate and dedicated funding, the legislature can protect public servants acting in good faith and foster a professional environment where qualified individuals are willing to step forward to lead. Before I conclude, I would like to respectfully request the following amendment to the language of the bill to ensure the purpose and intent of the Environmental Health Revolving Fund, or EHRF, remain intact. On Section 2, I'd like to request that it read letter D, sums based on 20% of total use tax collected in the previous fiscal year shall be continuously appropriated to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, or DPHSS, Environmental Health Revolving Fund, to cover costs associated with regulatory activities, including inspections of all food, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices imported, distributed, and sold on Guam, and other activities authorized for use from the Environmental Health Revolving Fund. Notwithstanding any provision of the law, the monies appropriated by this section, supra, shall be placed in the Environmental Health Revolving Fund within 20 days following the end of the month that the funds were collected. The EHRF was established to support the full scope of DEH's regulatory responsibilities and should continue to function as a dedicated, non-lapsing fund for the division's operations. Clarifying the language to ensure that appropriated use tax revenues are continuously deposited into the EHRF and available for all authorized environmental health regulatory activities will preserve legislative intent. In closing, Bill 127-38 is not merely a funding adjustment. It creates a logical connection between revenue generated from imported goods and the regulatory system responsible for ensuring those goods are safe. Supporting Bill 127-38 affirms that prevention matters. It affirms that statutory mandates should be matched with sustainable funding. And it affirms that protecting public health at the front end is far less costly than responding after harm occurs. I appreciate the opportunity to submit this testimony in support of Bill 127-38. I commend and thank the sponsors of this bill for their leadership, and I respectfully urge this body to pass Bill 127-38 and provide the Division of Environmental Health with the stable foundation necessary to fulfill the responsibilities this legislature has entrusted to it. Thank you, and Siduos Maasi.
It's Duzmasi. Ms. Navarro, for your very comprehensive testimony. And yes, the case is definitely made for the huge need for DEH, and thank you for your participation today. So my apologies, Mr. Tovas. You're now recognized. If you could just restate your name for record-keeping purposes.
Hafa Madam Chair, Senators. My name is Frank Tovas. and I serve as the current co-chairperson of the Guam Food Safety Advisory Group. The Guam Food Safety Advisory Group, formerly known as the Guam Food Safety Task Force, was originally established by executive order in July 2000 to strengthen food safety in Guam through the collaboration with the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Our membership includes the, local and representatives from the local and federal regulatory and non-regulatory agencies, the military, the nonprofit organizations, food establishments, and members of the community. For over 2 decades, GFSAG has worked closely with the Division of Environmental Health of the Department of Public Health and Social Services in advancing food safety initiatives, such as the adoption of the Food Code in 2015, and the passage of the Environmental Public Health Modernization and Revitalization Act of 2010. We respectfully submit this testimony in strong support of Bill number 127-38, which will allocate 20% of use tax revenues to the Division of Environmental Health Revolving Fund to enhance inspection capacity of imported consumer goods, including food, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices. The volume and complexity of imported consumer goods arriving on Guam has grown significantly, presenting new and evolving risks to the public health. According to DPHSS, inspection activities conducted in partnership with the USDA, FDA and the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency have already revealed a 286% increase in suspected violative importations in just 1 year, involving more than 140,000 commodities. This includes mislabeled food, unapproved pharmaceutical ingredients, and other adulterated food which could harm our community if not intercepted. Unfortunately, DEH has long struggled with inadequate staffing and resources. As GFSAG noted in our testimony on Bill 28-38, insufficient numbers of inspectors have too often led to reduced inspection frequency of food establishments and limited oversight of consumer goods. Without a reliable source of funding, DEH cannot keep pace with the rise in illegal and unsafe products entering Guam, especially through e-commerce and small-scale importers. Bill 127-38 directly addresses this problem by ensuring continuous appropriations to support DEH's critical work. Considering that the majority of all businesses regulated by DEH and are establishments that process, distribute, and or serve food to our people. The Guam Food Safety Advisory Group wishes to see more resources of the division directed towards compliance inspections, education of workers in the food industry, training of food inspectors, and initiatives to address the food safety gaps and shortfalls of our members in the advisory group. The passage of Bill 127-38 will greatly benefit GFSAG and the community we serve. Expanded inspection capacity will reduce the likelihood of foodborne illness, exposure to harmful chemicals, and other preventable health threats. This supports GFSAG's mission to safeguard Guam's food supply and promote consumer confidence. With more stable resources, DEH can expand joint initiatives with GFSAG, FDA, GEPA, and other partners. Reliable funding will allow our group to more effectively contribute through training, policy recommendations, and coordinated responses to food safety incidents. Bill 127-38 will also support consumer education campaigns of the risk of adulterated or misbranded goods. GFSAG has long advocated for stronger community outreach, and this measure will help bring that vision to reality. Food safety is not just a public health issue, it's an economic issue. Ensuring safe imports protects our restaurants, grocery stores, and local food producers from reputational and financial harm caused by contaminated or unsafe goods reaching consumers. For over 20 years, GFSAG has witnessed the following challenges faced by DPHSS in protecting Guam's food supply and consumer safety. Bill 127-38 provides a meaningful and sustainable solution by dedicating use tax revenues to inspection and enforcement activities. This is not only an investment in regulatory capacity, but also a direct investment in the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Guam. On behalf of the Guam Food Safety Advisory Group, I would urge the members of the legislature to support this bill and pass it into law. Pointing out something of personal experience, on Guam, I've had 3 decades of experience, as most of you know, which came after 15 years of experience on the US mainland. I have worked in hotels, full-service restaurants, quick food, and education, working for the Guam Community College and teaching at John F. Kennedy High School. I've also worked with the Department of Environmental Health in regards to inspecting restaurants, retail, and importers. This is vital that this be done. When we see that, or rather, we don't see DEH doing an inspection, if we don't see them for a year, 2 years, 5 years, you can imagine that it's no longer a priority within our commercial enterprise, and things get dirty, things that are unrepaired, water drips that don't get repaired, all which can contribute to foodborne illness. As a business person, we pay fees. We pay permit fees. We pay, on behalf of our employees, we pay their health cards. Some of us go so far as we pay for their TB test. Some of us, depending on exactly what we're working with, we may even have them, we pay for their physical. So to hear that if we have this dedicated funding source, that perhaps we're going to get a decrease in permit fees, a decrease in other certifications of what we have to pay. It all adds up. If I have 100 employees, if I have 500 employees, imagine places like Ross, Kmart, who end up paying for those various health cards that their employees have taken the class. A brief mention was made of the Asikuda system. I wanted to point out that with this system, and if which Customs wishes to purchase and implement, that DEH would work to interface with that. So not only do we have these 2 departments and agencies which directly are responsible for all importation via air flights, via port shipping, that they'll be able to identify in advance what's coming into the island, then Customs will be able to levy the appropriate use tax. But for DEH, they can see what's coming in because they really work together. When Customs receives something that they're unsure of or that they're pretty sure of, but it's really something for DEH to handle insofar as making sure as someone from DEH is accompanying this shipment to where it's going to be destroyed, this will really be helpful. And the thing about the use tax is OPA has already stated that we are only collecting a fraction of what could be there. That's already the law. Thank you very much. Sudus Masi.
Sudus Masi, Frank Tovis for your testimony on behalf of the Food Safety Group. We also received testimony from Calvin Johannes, who's the president of the Northern Pacific Environmental Health Association, who also provided written testimony in support of the bill. So this time I'm going to recognize my colleagues for any questions to the panel, including those that are on the state side. Senator Taitigui, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you so much for being here today. Frank, it's always good to see you. We go back, way back, and especially when it comes to restaurants, I'm an eater, you know. Wherever you're going, I usually try to patronize. You always make sure that the standards in your restaurant is at its very best. You know, so your testimony today means very much, because I know you're very hardcore when it comes to cleanliness, you know, of the restaurant, and definitely customer service at the same time. So with regards to public health, you know, the funding, you know that the funding has been separate with, actually the funding right now goes to 2 other agencies, I believe, Agriculture's and Department of Public Works, 3 actually, and Guam Environmental Protection Agency right now. So now the initiative is to take 20% of the portion to give it to not only public health, but also DOE that's here as well. And I think it's justly so, but we found that, you know, the use tax, and I know Senator Sabina and I had, when we first came back into the legislature, and I think it was in the 35th, if I'm not mistaken, or we went up to the airport to see how the process is and how much funding is really captured, and the barriers that they have between revenue tax, collecting it, and customs, and through the airport, and how the process is where you actually don't have to pay the use tax when you pick up your product. You just get a paper saying that don't forget to go to revenue tax to pay your taxes. And a lot of times people skip out on that or don't do it. So we've been trying to find a process that can really capture this funding. I think it's truly important. I think it was, you said somebody in their testimony, the first gentleman said in their testimony that, you know, the cost of damage that happens when you don't make that effort to inspect areas that can cause severe, you know, illness or even death if it's not cut in time. So I was hoping we would have Tom here as well, and I know that you're very capable, but you testified in your personal capacity, correct?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, is there a reason why public health is not here?
Well, I can speak for myself right now. I just felt that, you know, after having worked at DEH for over a decade, I've seen how dedicated staff have tirelessly did their job with very limited resources, and I just feel like I want to be here and express myself freely and share with you the challenges of DEH, so you can make a better decision about this bill.
Well, my hat is off to you. I like a person who, you know, no matter what, you're here for the people. You want to testify on your behalf without, you know, that hindrance of the administration telling you not to, or your workplace, because, you know, it's just, thank you for your courage for coming up here and testifying. I'm sure you took some leave to be here and things like that,
yes,
but I do recommend too as well to reach out, you know, I mean, you're advocating to us senators, reach out to Therese, the director, as well as Tom, to also encourage them to provide written testimony for this legislation. I don't think there's anything wrong with it on public health side. I mean, here's money coming to you. So I'm just surprised why they're not being here today to testify, because anybody would come here for support on more funding, especially when it's lacked. I don't really have any more questions. It's just mostly comments. There is a correction, though, in the legislation, I believe, from October 1st, 2025. The effective date will, just to make that slight correction, it'll be 26. So I noticed in the bill there was could be a typo, just a typo to turn it to 26. It's important to go back to them and request for a process. Standing operating procedures, I'm sure you have in SOPs you have in place, but with this new revenue, and any new revenue you get, before you receive the funding, I think it's important that you find the game plan on how to use it, and most especially the dates in completion. Once the money comes to you, we will be bringing more people on board because we have the funding to do so. But always remember that, with use tax, it's not always consistent. It's just like the Healthy Futures Fund. We project a revenue amount. Sometimes it doesn't always come through that full amount. So you have to take that in consideration. So I always say save for a rainy day. If you have extra funding, put it aside in case that use tax fluctuates to a point that you can't sustain yourself, okay? So then, thank you so much and again, my hat's off to the courage of being here and coming here on your personal capacity. I greatly appreciate, with your experience, I greatly appreciate it. Frank, always a pleasure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tadigui. Senator Sabina Salas Matanani.
Thank you, Senator Perez, and thank you, Leilani and Mr. Cruz, as well as Dr. Lim, Dr. Dijak, and the testimony that was submitted by Mr. Johannes. And Leilani, I can understand why you came here today in your personal capacity. I am surprised that the Department of Public Health is not here in person, because your testimony, it lists a lot of serious issues plaguing the Division of Environmental Health, and some that I've heard about years ago being in the media. So I did want to ask, because you mentioned here that between 2021 and 2025, DEH filled 31 vacancies but lost 34 employees, including 16 inspectors. So how many employees are currently at DEH?
It's about 20. I don't have the exact count right now, but about 20, 22, I believe. But because I oversee the inspection side, I'm familiar with the inspectors. We do have right now 3 fully trained staff who are able to conduct inspections independently.
So you only have 3 inspectors?
Fully trained. We have some that are still being trained.
How many are you still training?
So we have 1 that we're still training, and then we just onboarded actually 4 environmental health, 2 environmental health specialists, 3 environmental health specialists, 1 environmental public health officer, so a total of 4 that they just joined us like about a couple of weeks ago and this week.
Maybe then I should just ask, how many inspectors do you actually have that are going out and inspecting, doing inspections?
We have 3 inspectors that are able to lead the inspections. We have some inspectors that assist, but they cannot do independent inspections.
How many inspections do you conduct a day?
In a day, depending. So our primary, the inspection that really takes up a lot of time right now is school inspections because of the size of the facility. So if it's an elementary school, it would take us about 2 days. If it's a high school, it takes about 5 days to conduct the inspection for the whole facility, and that does not include report writing.
So is the Division of Environmental Health, would you say, in a state of emergency?
For me personally, yes, but of course that will have to come from leadership.
Yeah. Frank, would you say the Division of Environmental Health is in a state of emergency?
We are a voluntary, when I say we, the Guam Food Safety Advisory Council, we are a voluntary appointed, and we do this from our heart. We meet on a quarterly basis. I'm sorry, I'm just prefacing this because this is our relationship with DEH. We support their efforts. We strongly advise when we think the direction is not where we need to be going. And hence why we're here, not because it's not going where we want it to. This is nothing new. Since 2000, I mean, we're talking 25 years, directors have come and gone, heads of DEH have come and gone. What I want to point out is that through our efforts together, we have put plans in place with the University of Guam to give merit scholarships to train individuals to become environmental officers. This is not, how do I put it? In the old days, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, inspectors, all that was required was a high school diploma. And when this is not just an inspector of food, or their mandates include water fountains, swimming pools, schools, customs, the hospital. Their mandates are many, and so the expertise. And unfortunately, other agencies, federal, such as the FDA themselves, agencies on Guam, they have a different, what's the word I'm trying to, you used it earlier, quality of life. They work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They don't work weekends. They don't work at 2 a.m. to inspect a beverage venue, or when there's an emergency. And so would I say that it's an emergency? Yes, but it's an emergency we've had for decades. And again, between the 85 to 95% passion to follow the law, to protect our customers on the private industry side, and an understaffed, overworked, stressed out, never gets their full allotment. Oh yeah, they're promised X amount of dollars, but it never comes into their register. And fighting the competition that there are other agencies and the private sector who want these employees. I mean, it requires a degree now to be an environmental health officer. And it should, with the amount of information that they have to process, and in something as simple as writing a report. But bottom line, the numbers are not there. The numbers of inspections are not there. The numbers of personnel are not there. As she mentioned in her seeing is, vehicles that don't work. But even 25 years ago, I remember being a ride-along with inspectors, because I would teach management certification for restaurants that was required by law, that if the, if the light went out in the car, they would have to use their own personal money. And as she stated before, they're doing the weed whacking on the weekends. They're bringing wrenches from home to fix sinks and toilets that are leaking. But yes, in my personal opinion, and in the teamwork that we work with DEH on such a close basis, and we meet on a regular basis, yes, it's an emergency, but it's not a yesterday emergency. It's been for decades.
Right. And so how much of this would you say is it a funding issue, or is it really just employee, interest in this line of work type of problem? Yep. Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. Senator, like I mentioned in my testimony, it's really the main issue with DEH is really funding, because that's where all the staff retention issues come up, the staff recruitment issues are related to funding. So, and we do, we've been working, like I said, we've been working with, UOG and GCC to attract new grads and provide a pathway for them to see this profession for them in the future.
Brian, I see it. It's in your testimony. It says, in collaboration with stakeholders and the governor's workforce collaborative team on environmental health, DEH has developed an educational pathway and scholarship to service program for future inspectors. Is this already implemented?
It's still it's in process. It's partially implemented, like at GCC. They already implement the boot camp for our environmental technician aides. Hopefully, after they graduate, they go to DEH to pursue that profession. And then there's also some associate degree programs and certification programs at GCC, and we're working, I know Tom had been meeting with them regularly to make sure that the process will be smooth sailing once we know the funding is there.
And how much is this program? I guess, how much would this cost?
Unfortunately, Senator, I'm not familiar with the cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do support the intent of this bill, and I think, just in this new position for me as a senator, one of the things that I found challenging is trying to prioritize what's important, right? Public health, healthcare, education, public safety, and the economy. And so those are the things, going into this position that I wanted to prioritize, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that way when you have other colleagues. So I'll do my best to try and garner enough support for this bill, but there are other considerations because of the use of the use tax and how it's divvied out, and just reading the fiscal note on this, it's a little concerning. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gumatata, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Senator. For the record, according to the Consolidated Revenue and Expenditure Report, which is the CRER, for the period ending December 31st, 2025, use tax collections were projected at just over $8,791,967, which is above the adopted level in FY26. But according to the CRER for the period ending September 30, 2025, use tax collections were at $5,836,858, or just around $3.4 million less than the adopted level of $9.2 million for FY 2025. Also, Senator, for the adopted level for the Environmental Health Revolving Fund for FY 2026 is $1,586,489, which was appropriated in its entirety to DPHSS. According to the Special Funds Report for the period ending December 31st, 2025, the Environmental Health Revolving Fund collected over $52,261 more than it was collected during the same reporting period in FY 2025. I join Senator Terlaje, in concern about public health not being here, and I'm hoping that staff can maybe get answers to these two questions, recognizing that there were no administrative penalties reported during the entirety of FY 2025 and for the first quarter of FY 2026. What information is available from the Guam Department of Public Health regarding any alleged administrative violations during this 15-month period? And did the department address any appeals from individuals or health-regulated establishments during this particular time? That's important for me as a policymaker, because Bill 127 intends to help fund the costs associated with inspection activities of all foods, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices imported, distributed, sold, and used on Guam I guess my question going back to perhaps public health or Guam Customs and Quarantine, how can this measure specifically support the ongoing efforts of those respective agencies to address the unauthorized distribution of prescription drugs, food supplements, and cosmetics, which, based on anecdotal reports, are being brought into Guam under the guise of personal use? Thank you, Senator Perez, for the opportunity this morning to provide that to your attention.
Yes, thank you, Senator Gumatata. Those are questions that I will be bringing forward to Department of Public Health. I think it's also important to have some sort of metrics. So whenever there's funding request, and I believe that in this particular bill, there is a requirement for the director to submit an annual detailed budget to the legislature. I know in your testimony you wanted to delete that, but considering, I think it might be still important to keep that in as a safeguard to ensure the monies are being used appropriately. And I think within that budget, we should be able to see what is being funded. For instance, how many inspections, the violations identified, response times, really provide this tracking mechanism, as well as what type of support is given to small businesses to assist them, especially the small business, small volume importers, any contingency plans. And the other thing that my colleague mentioned is perhaps, looking at the fees. Of course, nobody likes to increase fees or fines, but if we don't provide the supplemental funding, that may be something that DEH would have to look at, considering the expansion of regulatory responsibilities. We definitely hear the need is great, even to the point where my colleague asked the question: Is this a emergency that needs to be addressed? And considering the testimony provided here today, it appears that it is, that we need to really pay attention to this division. Again, like I said, public health's tenet is that they have to, they're involved in prevention, and so the less we hear from them, the more successful they are, supposedly, right? But once we hear of the foodborne illness outbreaks, then we've really lost that opportunity to do the work that DEH is meant to do for our community. So we'll definitely look forward to the markup meeting for this, and hopefully strengthen the bill to not only provide funding, but to do it so in a transparent and accountable way. And so with that, I would like to thank all those that came to testify: Dr. David Dijak, Dr. Doug Farquhar, Dr. Lim Hapare, Leilani, Ms. Navarro, as well as Frank Tovis. Thank you so much for taking the time today to really educate us, the policymakers, as well as the public, about the importance that DEH plays within the Department of Public Health, and how we can support you in supporting the health of our community. With that, I would like to encourage all those to provide testimony, to continue to send testimony in to Senator, and please address Senator Sabina Flores Perez, address 710 Marine Corps Drive, Suite 303A, Hagatni, Guam 96910. Testimony can also be hand-delivered here to the Guam Congress Building or emailed to office.senatorperez@guamlegislature.gov. If there are no further testimonies or questions, Bill 127-38 is duly heard. The time now is 10:32 a.m. Seduz Masi, and have a great day. Thank you. And so we are going to move on to the last item of the agenda, is to Bill 126-38. And if we can have the superintendent, thank you so much, Superintendent, for your patience. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so now we begin our agenda. The time is now not 10:33 a.m. And we will now receive public testimony on Bill Number 126-38 COR, sponsored by Senators Sabina Flores Perez, Chris Barnett, Shelly v. Calvo, Therese M. Terlaje. It's an act to add a new section 28112D of Chapter 28, Title 11 Guam Code annotated relative to educational advancement and providing safe learning environments for our youth. I'd like to recognize my colleague, Senator Terlaje, Senator Sean Gumatauta. Thank you for joining me. To start with a brief introduction, Bill 126-38 is a timely measure considering the looming expiration of ARPA funds for critical capital improvement projects needed to meet sanitary requirements and to ensure safe learning environments for our students, teachers, administrators, and the GDOE community at large. Bill 126-38 proposes to dedicate the remaining 20% of use tax collected to GDOE to ensure that we continue on a regular maintenance and continual improvement trajectory versus regressing to the days of deferred maintenance that got us in trouble in the first place. Bill 126-38 also aims to support early childhood initiatives and other curriculum needs of GDOE. Dr. Dana Suskin, who has been attributed to have coined the term 30 million word gap, identified that children from literate poor households who are not provided resources and tools to promote early childhood development are not school ready compared to those from literate rich households. This further can impact a key point in their literary development, which is in which a child changes from learning to read to reading to learn. Bill 126-38 aims to invest in early childhood education, which is one of the most effective ways to improve long-term educational outcomes to help bridge this gap by supporting programs aligned with the comprehensive model such as Head Start that encompasses cognitive, motor, social-emotional development of a child in partnership with parents. GDOE can bridge this gap for many of the student population. This measure strengthens early learning opportunities for Guam's youngest residents and provides them with the tools they need to thrive from the start. Additional funding for instructional materials and curriculum can help GDOE meet evolving educational standards and ensure classrooms are equipped with updated resources that can enhance teaching and learning across all grade levels. I want to thank my colleagues, Senators Chris Barnett, Shelly v. Calvo, and Therese Terlaje for their support and look forward to the support of my colleagues, and I also look forward to the testimony here today. So now I'd like to recognize Superintendent Wampat for your testimony.
Buenas and half a day, honorable senators, Senator Perez, Senator Taitagui, and Senator Gumatauta. In the spirit of Inatfa Maulik, Jan Respeto, working together in mutual respect. Sorry about that. For the good of our community, I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill 126-38 COR. I would like to focus specifically on one critical area this bill addresses, which is deferred maintenance and the importance of preventative maintenance in our public schools. In 2022, the GDOE School Facilities Master Plan identified approximately $110 million in deferred maintenance across our school system. That figure is now 3 years old. We know with certainty that the actual amount today is higher. Deferred maintenance does not stay flat. It compounds, including ADA compliance. When roofing repairs are delayed, water intrusion spreads. When mechanical systems are not serviced, equipment fails prematurely. When electrical infrastructure is not maintained, safety risks increase. Every year, we postpone repairs. Costs escalate. The longer we wait, the more expensive and disruptive the solutions become. This bill is important because it creates a predictable and dedicated funding system. Without without predictable funding, maintenance becomes reactive. We respond to emergencies instead of preventing them. If we use these funds strategically for deferred maintenance, we can stabilize roofs before widespread structural damage occurs, maintain HVAC systems before full replacement is required, upgrade aging electrical systems before failures interrupt instruction, and reduce emergency repair contracts that often cost more. Just as importantly, we protect instructional time. When a school closes a wing due to water damage, when air conditioning fails during instructional hours, or when facilities are deemed unsafe, students lose learning time. Preventative maintenance protects academic continuity. Guam's climate accelerates deterioration. Salt air, humidity, and heavy rainfall increase the wear on our facilities. If we do not establish consistent maintenance cycles now, the deferred maintenance backlog will continue to grow beyond our ability to manage it. The $110 million identified in 2022 was already significant. If we delay further, we risk seeing that figure increase substantially, placing even greater strain on future budgets. This bill allows us to shift from crisis management to strategic asset management. By dedicating 20% of use tax revenues to GDOE and ensuring timely allocation, the legislature provides the stability necessary to implement long-term preventive maintenance planning. Safe learning environments are not optional. They are foundational to educational advancement. For these reasons, I respectfully urge passage of this measure and encourage prioritizing deferred maintenance as a primary use of these funds. On the other language in the bill, I respectfully submit this testimony in opposition to the measure, particularly as it relates to early childhood development aligned with Head Start and its potential impact on federally funded education and mental health programs. While the intent of the bill to dedicate 20% of the use tax revenues to support capital improvement, early childhood development aligned with Head Start, and curriculum needs to the Guam Department of Education is commendable, the structure and language of this measure present serious risk of federal supplanting violations that would jeopardize millions of dollars in federal funding currently supporting Guam's most vulnerable children and families. The bill specifically appropriates funds for, and I quote, early childhood development aligned with Head Start, end of quote. This language creates a significant compliance concern. The federal Head Start program strictly prohibits supplanting, meaning local funds cannot replace federal funds, and federal funds cannot replace local obligations. If the expansion of locally funded early childhood programs under this measure overlaps or shifts responsibilities that are currently supported by the federal Head Start funds, federal authorities may determine that Guam is supplanting funds. The financial risk is substantial. The Head Start program represents approximately $5 million annually. In addition, Guam receives federal support under the Personal Responsibility Education Program, PREP, amounting to approximately $250,000, which supports education designed to reduce teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. Furthermore, mental health services support under consolidated federal grants a total of approximately $1.69 million. Collectively, these programs represent nearly $6.94 million in federal funding that could be placed at risk if supplanting or compliance violations are identified. The risk to Head Start is particularly alarming. Guam is already at risk due to the implementation of universal pre-K and gate pre-K laws. The expansion of universal pre-K and gate pre-K programs aligning with Head Start model may unintentionally create duplication of services or shift the funding structure in a manner that federal reviewers could interpret as supplanting. Compounding this concern is the fact that Head Start is currently not meeting its enrollment requirements. Federal law requires funded enrollment slots to be filled. If enrollment declines further due to expanded local pre-kindergarten programs drawing eligible children away from Head Start, Guam could face funding reductions or even program termination. Head Start is not simply a pre-kindergarten classroom program. It is a comprehensive child development program that includes health screening, nutrition services, family engagement, disability services, and social-emotional support. Head Start also offers early interventions for families with children from 0 to 3 years old. The loss of this program would disproportionately impact low-income families who rely on these wraparound services. Similarly, PrEP and SRE programs provide structured, federally guided instructions to reduce teenage pregnancies and STIs. Any restructuring of curriculum funding under this bill that conflicts with federal program requirements, reporting standards, or content guidelines could trigger non-compliance findings. These are prevention programs designed to protect Guam's youth and reduce long-term social and healthcare costs. Their loss would be both financially and socially detrimental. The $1.69 million in federally funded mental health services under consolidated grants is also vulnerable. If use tax revenues are used to fund overlapping services without careful delineation of responsibilities, Guam risks federal audit findings that could result in repayment obligations or funding suspension. At a time when student mental health needs are increasing, we cannot afford instability in these services. Although the bill seeks to create a reliable and predictable funding stream for education, federal funds are governed by strict supplement, not supplant provisions and maintenance of effort requirements. Without explicit safeguards, fiscal separation mechanisms, and formal federal guidance, this measure may unintentionally trigger federal compliance violations. I respectfully urge the legislature to pause and conduct a comprehensive federal compliance review before advancing this section of this measure. Written guidance should be obtained from federal program officers overseeing Head Start, PrEP, and SRE, and consolidated grants to ensure that the proposed funding structures does not place Guam at risk of losing nearly $6.94 million in critical federal support. The goal of improving educational facilities and expanding early childhood access is important. However, we must ensure that these efforts do not undermine the very federal programs that currently sustain early childhood education, youth health education, and student mental health services on our island. For these reasons, I respectfully urge that section of Bill 126-38 to fund alignment of early childhood Head Start program but we support, however, the 20% of local funding for early childhood and instructional materials to promote mental health and improve facilities for a safe learning environment. Thank you for your consideration and for your continued commitment to the children and the families of Guam.
Thank you, Superintendent Wampat, for your testimony. It looks like that's your team behind you, so I'm assuming there's nobody else here to provide testimony.
They're my deputies. If you have any specific questions, these two ladies directly behind me are definitely those who oversee federal grants, the Head Start program, and consolidated grants.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. It definitely was not my intent to supplant, and perhaps that kind of jogs my memory a little bit because at the time I wrote this, I think Head Start was in, they weren't sure where they were going to get their funding from. And so I included it in the bill. And so now times have passed, it's over a year, and things have changed, right?
Yes.
So, but, you know, I understand the amount of money in the use tax they're collecting is not enough, but at least it's going to provide some funding for, you know, whatever DOE needs. And I think one of the highest priorities definitely are facilities. But I also, as an educator too, I wanted to ensure that in addition to a building, we want curriculum, right? That's the reason why we have an educational system is a curriculum within those structures.
I mean, you could easily, you know, so long as you don't have the words aligning with Head Start, they're far more restrictive than the other programs that we have. And, you know, you can actually indicate that some of the funding then can be used for the maintenance of effort on our part because we have to provide that. So they provide the funding to support the program, but they're requiring that we ourselves must also provide some funding, which is called maintenance of effort. So definitely the funding can go towards, you know, to help in the early childhood program without the word saying alignment with Head Start.
Consider it deleted.
Yeah, it's very restrictive. As a matter of fact, we have two individuals here currently. They were here last week and this week providing some support. They're visiting all of our Head Start programs. And it is, you know, of course, disheartening for them to learn that we will have to shut down 2 centers because we're unable to fill all of the classes.
Yeah, I know we're going to have a hearing on Friday, but maybe perhaps you can provide some insight as to why enrollment is decreasing. Is it just parents are not getting the...
Well, we're seeing overall with our schools, there's a drop in our enrollment, and there are various reasons, of course, but one of the things, the families are just not having, you know, large families anymore. They're down to, it used to be 8, 12, 6, and now we're down to 2 or 1, or even maybe the most 3. So we're seeing that. And we were thinking that it would be better in the north because that's where a lot of the movement has been, but we're seeing it actually happening throughout. So the north is just as affected, but worse when it comes to central and south.
So one of the bills that I've passed into law was requiring health professionals to take credits in regards to early childhood development upon renewal of their licensure. And so that to me was very critical because one of the surveys that was done was that 94% of the mothers were not told about early childhood development. And we know that by 9 months of age, we're already seeing differences in one youth's capabilities in their literary development. And so much so that it impacts already by the time they enter school, they're already behind.
Well, every year, usually in the summer before school opens, is that we put out announcements, what we call the Child Find Program. These are the 0 to 3-year-olds to let them know what services are available. to families and children. So, I mean, maybe we will have to look and see how much and how widespread. Maybe that information, you know, should go out to the community to let them know. But we do that every year.
That's one of the thoughts behind this was, you know, looking at even early Head Start, right? Because the Head Start program, I believe, starts at 3 years of age. Is that correct?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
But
and so there is an early Head Start program where we can reach them upon birth, and that is, like, to me, the goal. I guess one of the areas where that we really need to reach out to parents. But yeah, again, that was a thought behind this bill. Let's reach
Yeah.
them, reach parents earlier, you know, because they play a critical role in a child's development, and the more
the Head Start program right now are competing with, like I said earlier, the universal pre-K program and even the GATE program. When we were looking at the master's schedule, we found that even in the north, the pre-GATE program, we would only have 1, maybe 4 students in a class. And we're seeing the numbers also lower again for universal K. So we're now struggling, parents are struggling, you know, where to put their children. And of course, with the Head Start, it's a little bit different because that's funded federally, whereas the other, and the GATE, pre-GATE, but the universal pre-K program, that's locally funded.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll definitely reserve some of this conversation for Friday, because that's,
Yes.
we can go more into depth. But in regards to this bill, yeah, consider it done. We're going to take out the words Head Start because we definitely do not want the unintended consequences of appearing to
You're
supplant. Right.
That's the main focus. However, I want you to know as well is that they're far more restrictive in the sense that when we offer it in the school, we have to either build really a separate classrooms for them. It has to be gated, fenced. Their equipment, playground equipment is also separate. Restrooms are separate. I mean, and there's monitoring all the time of, you know, their facilities. And the adult-child ratio is much lower as well. And very, how should I say, the background investigation are also very strict of every adult in that program, and also, you know, of course, certain requirement of educational courses that they must take to be qualified to work with children under the Head Start program versus any other programs that, you know, we currently have.
Okay, and just technical issues with the testimony you provided. There are 2 sets, so I don't know if you wanted to resubmit or you're comfortable with this because one it says opposition and the one it says support. So
well, primarily only because of the alignment to the Head Start program, but overall, of course, we do support, you know, the bill,
okay.
the funding source, and if the funding source, at least for the program itself, could be used for the maintenance of effort.
Yeah, perhaps if you can just resubmit just to clarify.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And I think again the effective date of the act was 2025. That was because when we introduced it, it was in February of last year. So we'll definitely change that, hopefully with the support of my colleagues. But yeah, to me, it's very clear, you know, Department of Education needs dedicated funding in order to plan, right? To plan properly, especially with the, you know, maintenance. We want to make sure we don't revert back to those days of deferred maintenance. But also look for transformational opportunities when it comes to literacy and with early childhood development. So at this time, I would like to recognize Senator Tadigui for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's actually quite nice to say, Madam Chair, you know, now that we're a majority doing all these committee meetings and, you know, being the chair, it's a lot of work. So it's kind of refreshing to see Senator Perez come back to this state right now and be the one to just appreciate the work that she puts out. And Yeah, I want to call you speaker because we served when you were speaker, had the opportunity to work with you. And education, of course, was one of your fortes. And so today we're here with some money coming your way. You know how difficult that is, to actually get, especially with maintenance. I mean, we've gone through the last 2 years, or should I say 3 now, because we're into the next term, but Senator Barnett had made quite a bit of changes to the education system by being an advocate to ensure that there's safety in the schools. The rooms are taken care of, the inspections that are requiring, and it took a lot, he took a lot of heat. I mean, you were in the trenches too at that time when they were taking a lot of heat to make sure that the maintenance done. So my question is, will you prioritize this funding if you get it more of a percentage toward maintenance than the other curriculum?
Absolutely. And that, of course, again, would be the language on the bill where you basically would say that funding source will be earmarked specifically for capital improvement projects.
The percentage-wise, though?
Yes.
How much do you plan, or you think it's important of this funding to go to maintenance versus the curriculum?
Well, we want to definitely make the maintenance a priority because that's rarely, we rarely get money for maintenance. And like we stated earlier, that when a study was done a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, the estimate cost was over $110 million. And we appreciate the fact that a couple of years back, the legislature appropriated $20 million to help the department, and then just recently with this year's budget was the $10 million, and that definitely has gone, a long ways. We are at the point right now for March where the ARP monies are going to expire, and the last of the ARP monies were used for 12 schools that are being renovated. I mean, like for example, restrooms being done, spalling, roof leaks, doors, and then now even covered walkways. So we are at the very end right now, which is just the covered walkways that the company needs to do, and that will then wipe out the ARP monies. So that would leave us basically only what we currently have for this fiscal year. I know that my deputy has been working with the staff in terms of responding as quickly as possible to all of the schools to address whatever requests they're asking for, and we're able to currently be able to address them. And I'm sure you've seen in the papers as well, in the press releases, that our schools are now starting to get grades of A's, which is wonderful, of course. We want to continue to keep it that way. But like we said earlier, it's going to have to be a continued maintenance. It can't be waiting for something serious to happen, and then that's when we're going to address it, because it will just get worse.
Yes.
So yes, I would like to make sure that definitely would go at least a majority of it to CIP. I would like to, on this particular case, now when we're talking about the early childhood, is then find out exactly what the maintenance of effort would be satisfactory to the federal programs people that we can put in, to meet then the federal requirement, yes.
Or your share.
Yeah, you're right, our share.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that is, so
it's
we
your
would
share.
have, we will,
Well, first kudos to ORDOT Chalampago meeting, almost completing, we just got the news on that one. And, but so I'm thinking you're looking like more 80-20 of this funding, 80% going to maintenance, because you and I both know that was one of the biggest issues, even during your time as a speaker, that the percentage, or not even a percentage, we never got CIPs for schools. It was always the operations.
Yes.
And that's why it's felt, just started crumbling, in front of our faces without funding the CIP project. And the only thing I think that saved us was the ARP funding. Unfortunately, we had to go through something so devastating, and the whole world had to go through to get funding to assist us. So we took advantage of that, and now we're, like you said, starting to see our schools being inspected with A grade, and that's a good thing. It's always makes, it gives me more energy to fight more when I see these things happening. Everybody should we're doing it's working. Let's move forward to. So other than that, 80-20, I hope that's and of course it requires you to indicate that. There was some other stuff that we talked about earlier on the previous bill, requirements, Madam Chair, on some of the matrix on it, if that would assist performance matrix, small business support, contingency plan, most especially contingency plan, because in the event, and we know this funding fluctuates on use tax. It's not always the same, as you know,
That's right.
right? So what's the contingency plan? Are you going to put some of that, maybe 80-15, and the other 5% is saved for a rainy day in case, the fluctuation of funds from use tax doesn't come in. Public reporting, letting us know. One thing I think people feel when they're paying their taxes, they don't know where it's going. They just, here I am paying taxes and it's tax time, right? But when they know they're paying taxes that's actually going to go to something that they feel is important, like education, like health care. I think people are able to swallow that pill a lot better, knowing it goes there. But a lot of times our public doesn't know where our taxes go. They think it's being squandered and wasted, on salaries or something like that. But this has a meaning behind it. So I greatly appreciate that, knowing that. Enhanced penalties for violators, that's something different on the other bill, actually. So that's just some of the requests, on this bill, other than making the changes I agree with. Funding maintenance, of course, as I mentioned, the plan put forward is important. So other than that, I thank you for being here, and your dedication to the people of Guam still continues to move forward, no matter what. So appreciate that too as well. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and create a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much, Senator Tadigui. Senator Gumatauta, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. And I didn't get a chance to see you recently, but I wanted to say, Madam Speaker, welcome back to the Guam Congress building. And again, congratulations to you on your role now as Superintendent of Education. Again, just happy to see you. Madam or Senator, I just wanted to go back and just for the record, if I could, according to the CRER, for the period ending September 30, 2025, use tax collections were at $5,836,858, or $3,433,774 less than the adopted level of $9,270,632 for FY 2025. Guam's use tax law, specifically 11 GCA section 28112, sets aside 20% of the total use tax collected in the previous fiscal year to be appropriated to the Customs, Agriculture, and Quarantine Inspection Services Fund to cover costs with inspection activities. Another 20% of the total use tax appropriated to DPWs to help service the village roadway funds. Another separate 20% of use tax for the Guam Environmental Protection Agency's Environmental Cleanup Fund to cover costs associated with preserving Guam's natural resources. And again, just I wanted to bring that at least to here to our discussion today. With respect to the reported $3.4 million shortfall in use tax collections at the end of FY 2025, what information is available confirming the specific obligations of the Guam EPA, Department of Public Works, and Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, which had to either be held in abeyance or covered by other funding sources during the same fiscal year? I'm hoping that at least in the markup process that we're able to get at least some of the clarification with that. To my question to our former speaker, recognizing that the OPA reported during a February 4th oversight hearing this year that GDOE had substantial unliquidated balances as of December 2025, including $12.1 million in federal funds which were at risk. Does GDOE, I know we heard it this morning, outside of what you mentioned earlier, does GDOE have any other recommendations on how the legislature can maximize use tax revenue if and when these resources become available so that non-GDOE programs that need and can spend taxpayer dollars for the public benefit can be strengthened moving forward? I do agree with the intent, by the way.
Thank you very much for all that information, because I had actually was asking myself the same question. How much percentage of the use tax is going elsewhere? And when I heard that this morning, I was trying to figure out then what would we end up with, and then of course the 3 million shortfall definitely, is not going to make it. Won't be able to spread it throughout the different agencies, and they're all well worth, departments and agencies and what they do for the community. I don't want to be in that position that you're currently going to have to make that decision in terms of how you want to divvy up this percentage. I will let you know, however, of course, every little bit counts. And we're not going to say we don't appreciate it, because we really do. The lapses that we currently have, we're still getting a determination, first of all, from the feds before we can actually start to draw it down because of the 20%, learning loss that we have to address. After that, of course, plans have been already being set in terms of all basically CIP projects as much as we can, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have these lapses. And we can address everything else in the department, with the exception, of course, the hardest and the most expensive will be CIPs. And that's where we want to see the monies go there as quickly as we can, as timely as we can. And like I said, to address not only the 110 quotation was given to us, but the recent bill, a bill that was passed apparently, I think maybe 2 years ago, that is now pushing the ADA compliance up to this year, so that we're pushing for that as well. And we just received the Siemens report addressing those. So a lot of the whatever funds we have will definitely go towards, like I said, CIP and ADA. So whatever extra monies that can come to us from the use taxes, then we can use those for the continual maintenance of our schools, on a daily basis, not necessarily to go and address these big issues that I just mentioned.
No, and I think while I'm not trying to throw water on the fire, if you will, just knowing that just in this fiscal year we're seeing that kind of, or at least from the last one, a little bit of slippage, we can expect as we start to create policies that will tighten up use tax and reporting, that obviously the amounts that would, in this case, almost a majority, if not all of the use tax would already be now diverted, but 20% going to DOE. You're absolutely right. There might be other projects outside of specifically ADA types of actions that could benefit from any infusion to include something along the lines of the use tax provision. So again, not meaning to bring it down, but at least in terms of realism today, that's not meaning that in the future fiscal years, as you can attest, the actual amounts of money, if we tighten up our collections and enforcement, there is really an opportunity, a really great opportunity to support GDOE. That's all I wanted to say. And again, thank you, Madam Speaker, for being with us, and thank you, Senator, for the time today.
Thank you, Senator Gumatao. Yes, I know that the use tax is definitely under-collected, but hopefully in the future with the automation that it would grow and support the needs of DOE. And just also there was some of my constituents also were interested in looking at they were looking at moving to LBJ, the Inetan, Fenadzoc, and Chamorro, right? And they were seeking funding to move, but perhaps as their program expands, there might be some ways to utilize this funding. I don't know if that's a thought to as a potential use of the funding, in addition to early childhood education initiatives, helping to grow that immersion program within DOE.
Senator, when that first came out, we did some research as well to find out specifically, what this whole program really was had started out to be. And the resolution that we've seen that the board had passed was that it was like a pilot program at the very beginning when it started, and it was supposed to be a K-5 program at PC Lohan. There was also a resolution basically saying that they would like to see the program expand to the other regions. So we have one currently, which is K-5, and then there's the 3 other regions where now what we're looking at is that do we start it, this fiscal year, depending on, of course, most importantly, is I have to look at the recruitment of Chamorro, language teachers. And if I'm going to start it in the 3 regions, then that means I'm going to need 3 teachers. We currently have 5 vacancies of Chamorro language teachers in our schools that we haven't been able to recruit. And I've been working very closely with the University of Guam with their program to see whether they're going to be able to graduate all of these students to feed into our schools. And right now, the numbers are not there. The other issue that we're looking at, of course, would be, yes, funding. 2 would be whether we're going to have the funding source to go out and renovate LBJ. But then you have to look at the feasibility and of basically having a population of 50 students in a large school that's designed for 300 students. And that school was operating at almost $3 million a year, fully functioning. The other option that, so we're researching this to find the best solution to be able to continue this program and then expand the programs in the other region, is basically making sure that we're able to identify based on the fact that all of our schools are underutilized. That means that there are available classrooms in other schools that could be made available for Fenadzocan and even for the start of one in every region. So we're looking at all those. I know that we submitted our budget. We're going to rather submit our budget. We're printing all of the copies, but it's at $307 million right now, but it does not include, of course, the Fenadzocan program. That would take us above that should we submit a separate budget. And even at that, there would be the passage of the budget law would not go into effect until October 1st. And although the goal is to try to get them in by this summer, it's impossible to happen. However, it could in other schools based on the availability of space. And then the cost, there will be nominal costs other than the hiring of additional teachers, because already that facility would have the full complements of a school.
Okay, that seems more feasible, right? If there's an empty classroom, then rather than transfer over to an MT school. Okay, thank you for that, and I appreciate your time and your participation today, and I look forward to collaborating further, and definitely we'll send you any amendments to the bill to make sure that it's appropriate and does not, yeah, it doesn't affect any funding. So with that, I want to encourage those in the public to continue to send testimony addressed to Senator Sabina Flores Perez, 710 Marine Corps Drive, Suite 303A, Hagåtña, Guam, 96910. Testimony can be hand-delivered to the Guam Congress Building or emailed to office@senatorperez@guamlegislature.gov. If there are no further questions or testimonies, Bill 126-38 is duly heard, and the time now is 11:19 a.m. Saduas Masi, and have a great day.